And we are live. So injuries are part of sport, but what happens when an athlete gets injured during a competition? Should they be allowed to continue or should they be stopped? Is it a simple personal decision or should CrossFit step in? Here to discuss this and so much more, we have from Get With The Programming, Bill Grundler, a CrossFit analyst who can often be seen on the Spin Report or the Savan podcast, John Young, a man who loves to read the rule book from Known and Knowable, it's Mike Halpin.
His intros are getting better and better.
Yeah. And fresh off the competition floor from the French Throwdown, Margot Masset, better known as Mango. So welcome, everybody. Now, I realize this could be chaotic. I am tempted to adopt the Coffee Pods and Wads system of giving you a minute and a mute button, but I'm not going to do that. I trust you to behave yourselves. And I know we're all eager to share our thoughts and obviously Mango's her personal experience as well. But before we begin, just to set the scene a little bit, I thought it would be good to kind of say that, you know, the catalyst for this conversation is what happened to Rebecka Vitesson, injuring herself on the rope climb and then trying to continue the workout and then collapsing on the box and getting carried off. So no doubt we'll probably be talking about Rebecka quite a bit. So I thought it might be nice that we just started. If you had sort of a nice positive message for her, if you wanted to wish her a speedy recovery or something, maybe we could do that now.
Yeah, get better, Rebecka.
Wow, John, so sweet.
Safe travels home. Yeah.
I mean, she's gotten millions of those, man. Everybody's on the same page.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it was just horrible, but I didn't see her actually because we were not on the same heat. And Marius, who knows her a lot, and he's my photographer too, and he's my friend, he told me that, and then I saw that she was injured, but I didn't know because, you know, you're in your heat and you're on the floor, you don't think about other people, you know, you're kind of in your bubble, so you don't see anything. And then, he told me that, and the next day I saw her, and she was like unable to do anything. She was injured. So yeah, I saw it, and it's always bad to see someone like this because you know that you don't want to have this, and I'm injured too. I mean, it's not the same thing, but you know, you don't want it, and you can feel it because as an athlete, you know that you need your body as you need your mind. You know.
The hard part about watching that whole thing, and Rebecka, seriously, get better. But you've been through this realm before. I think didn't someone say she had like two? I think she's had an ACL on both knees.
It was in one of her
so
stories,
this is like old hat. And that almost like that hurts my heart even more. Because I hate when an athlete has to deal with that. I mean, I know what it feels like. Obviously, John as well, AC injured athlete as well. So we know what that feels like.
Should I go break my ACL real quick? Or
no, you're not part of the group.
Professionally on this topic, part of the group already.
Yeah, that's why I'm not talking and I'm just moderating because ACL intact. So it's like, you know, you're not allowed to chime in on this. Now, I actually asked Rebecka to come on the show, but unfortunately, she's probably on a plane right now, traveling home. But she was kind enough to send me a message with sort of her take on everything. I thought maybe I'd just read that, and then it's kind of like an interesting maybe start to the conversation, and then I'll shut up. You guys can speak, and I can't wait to see what comes out. What a wonderful panel I've got here today. So it's fascinating. But she said, and links to a little bit what you were saying about her already having had it, because she says, my own experience when it happened, I've had 2 ACL tears before, so I knew immediately in that situation what was happening, and it was devastating. I'd worked so hard to get back to the games, and I just could not believe that this was really happening. In such a situation, you can't think clear, and the adrenaline is pumping. When the medical team finally arrived, the first time they asked me what I wanted to do, and immediately in that second, my only thought was, I'm not quitting. I want this so badly, I'm going to try. So I went up, somehow I managed to bike and do another rope climb, but I've no idea how. And I wish I never did it because the second time I collapsed again, the pain was twice as bad and probably damaged it more. She then says that she heard the story that I put up. She thought, you're probably right. Or there should maybe be some sort of quick protocol. They're asking questions and taking the decision, not letting the athlete taking the final decision, because again, I was not thinking rationally. I was only behaving on instinct and my dreams and goals. Interesting. Adrian Bosman also came up to me and apologized for how long it for how long I had lay out there before getting any help. Honestly, the whole situation is just super unlucky. I didn't even jump from that high. There could have also been, a safety mark on the rope for the descent, like they've had in previous years. But anyway, she's saying that that wasn't the issue. It's frustrating and completely out of my control. I was honestly smashing that event, and it was the event I was most looking forward to. Again, devastating to end the season like this. But she is very grateful for all the messages, as John Young mentioned, that people are writing, and she's just trying to take it day by day. So that was her thoughts on the whole situation. What are your thoughts about this? Also, people in the comments section. So I think the title is "When an Athlete is Injured, What Should CrossFit Do?" And I don't know why that seems to be people saying there seems to be some issue with that title. Is that weird?
No, I don't think it's weird. I think that well, at least generally, I would think that you're looking for some sort of a protocol. And the hard part about that is Rebecca's right. When the injury she had was literally the exact same injury that I had, and that was the first. I think it was 2013, 2014. Where they did the 10 rounds of the legless rope climb and the little sprint out and back. And I came down off the rope and snapped mine too. So like, I know exactly what she's talking about. I know oh, dang, something hit and I'm trying to figure out if I can still go. Usually when that happens, at least in a competition, I haven't had anything like that happen in training, but in a competition, there is a shot of adrenaline, and it was more of it. There wasn't a pain. It was more of like a shock when I felt mine. And so I thought I felt like my knee kind of popped out of place, but I thought that I could just kind of shake it back into place. So I got up and was limping. And at least where we did ours, the medical team came up right away. And it was almost not that they did the wrong thing. They did the right thing, which was coming out to see how I was. But I almost wanted them out of the way because I couldn't assess what I had going on yet. And just like she said, there's a lot of adrenaline. There's a lot pumping right there. I mean, in your competitor, you don't know about stopping. Like you just don't understand that part. That being said, I still think that it's like you as an athlete want to be able to make that decision because it's my body. Now, it would be different if it was in training. The coach should stop you. I mean, if you're feeling like some sort of injury, they should stop you immediately because you want to build towards the competition. But in the competition, I mean, my personal opinion is like, look, I've been doing all this work up to this point. Let me break off whatever I need to break off if I choose to keep going. That's me. That's on me. It's my responsibility at that point.
And it's not Waterpalooza either. It's right. This is what she's training for. This is to go to the games. Like if you stop her now, the whole season's over anyway. It doesn't matter. It's over regardless.
Yeah, and I also think that it's not just the athlete who is talking. I think it's more the human. And I think that we are all, like kind of like warriors. We are like, we feel our body every day. Like we feel like, some pain every day because we train a lot. So we kind of like used to it. And also I think that we always push like ourselves very hard, and we try to we try to don't have any limits, so sometimes it's hard because you feel something, you'll be like, is it okay, can I go, like, oh, is it too bad? I mean, at this moment she said that she already had that before, so I think she knew it, but sometimes it's hard. And also like what I was saying, is not just the athlete, I think it's the human. And if you're like a warrior, you don't want to quit. And even the idea of quitting is like, I think it's one of the worst things when you're an athlete. It's like being injured is something, is like, of course, not something you want, but being injured and quitting is like, it's kind of like a nightmare,
There's like a mental aspect to it as well then at that point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I just like, we don't have a stop. We don't have a stop. I mean, you can't, as an athlete, especially as an elite level athlete, you can't stop. And if you do, then you basically fall behind the wave of being an elite level athlete, because that's that mental toughness that goes on. And like John was saying, like, you're right. and we've all seen it, Julie Fouché, same type of thing where it's like, okay, you're done. Like, you're not going to be able to snatch ladder, the sprint was coming up. It's not like she was going to be able to do squat snatches afterwards, but that doesn't really matter. It's almost like, look, I at least want to finish out whatever I can finish out for me, not to get to the games.
Exactly.
It's purely for me because I have worked all this time to get to this point. If this is how I'm going out, I at least want to go out with some sort of pride. And that's if she would have stopped, not that it's no pride, but like me personally, there's all kinds of pride stuck on that. For me, I got to be okay with that.
Okay, I have a question about all of this. I want to hear what Halpin has to say on it first.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, you're fine. I have a few comments, but I kind of wanted to hear from Mingo first. What was because we heard from Rebecka, what was your process during the snatch ladder? Because you can actually see like a glimpse of it on the feed, is that you can see you grabbing your elbow all of a sudden. But like, can you take us through that? I kind of like to hear that because the two stories are sort of intertwined here a bit.
I mean, contrary to Rebecka, I haven't injured before, so I had no idea about this. I know that I'm kind of flexible, so it happened for me sometimes that I can save a snatch and you can almost see my elbow going like this, but I can have it and it's fine. I still think that maybe if I was in training, I would not try to save it, but because I was in a competition, I tried to save it with adrenaline and everything, And I mean, I could feel something, and also I heard the crack like this, and I mean, I could feel something different than usually. Then when I do it, like I can see that my elbow is going a little bit behind, but it does nothing to me. But at this moment, I could feel pain and I could hear something. So then I was like, ooh, what's happening? But I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to feel it. So 2 seconds after that, you can see me doing like this. And then you see me doing this with my hand, because, I mean, then I just realized that something was very wrong.
Pain takes over? Yeah. Well, and because obviously for prep for this and then just watching the last few days, 2 hours later, you were doing strict ring muscle ups. So I'm just curious, like, from your perspective, and it sort of speaks to Rebecka's situation as well, is what was the medical process from the moment that you obviously showed an injury to then, as far as I'm aware, CrossFit rules now state, because of issues last year, that an athlete that leaves the floor for an injury has to be approved by the medical team leadership as well as the head judge. So can you say that a medical team person and a head judge gave you the approval to do 30 cals on the echo bike, or I'm sorry if it was different for the women, but 30 cals on the echo bike and then a few strict ring muscle ups, which I mean more power to you. As Bill was talking about, like athletes perform, so like you did it.
Yeah, I mean, straight away when I finished the snatch, I was a doctor, and I just showed, I mean, he just saw it, and we had the video. We could have really see it, actually, that something went wrong. And the first thing he did was just touching me and just saying if it was broken or no. Because obviously, if it would be broken, then, I wouldn't even think about anything, and, I would just go to the hospital and goodbye. But it was not broken. And, you're still warm and you still have adrenaline. And at this moment, I look at him and I look at my coach, and we're like, okay, like, my goal is to go to the games. And it was only one workout left. And I wouldn't go to the game this year. Like, I could be in the top 20s, but, not in the 10. So is it good to take the risk to do the full workout with 15 ring muscle up and everything? Or is it better for me to think about my next season and the next opportunity to go to the CrossFit Games? So, of course, I was thinking about that. And then the doctor was like, I mean, it's not broken, but I think it's muscular strain. So you have to be careful. But me, I was like, I mean, I was still warm, so I could feel it, but it was not that much that I was like, okay, I need to go to the hospital, you know what I mean? So in your head, you're like, what do I do? Because, like I still have one workout left. And I just try to be the smartest at this moment. And I was like, okay, I don't want to withdraw because this is something that for me is, I didn't see me doing this. So I was like, I'm going to do what I can with without being silly, And that's why I did the 22 cars with only one hand. And then they told me, okay, but if you don't want to withdraw, you need to do ring muscle up. At least you have to try, at least. And if you fail or if you can't, then, we just have to see that we try to do it, which I understand for one thing. I think that CrossFit wants athletes to show that we don't really quit, you know what I mean? It's like, it's more a mentality thing, And so, yeah, that's what I did. And I said, I'm not going to do ring muscle up because I couldn't see myself doing this. But if I do strict, I can control all my movement. And if I feel something like so bad, I can finish, I can just stop my movement and just jump from it and just be like, okay, I tried and that's over. You know what I mean?
So they had you must attempt to ring muscle up as a minimum work requirement.
If I don't want to withdraw, yeah.
I mean, Ant Hands was similar, had a similar situation too. I don't think a similar injury, but he was biking with one arm too.
Yeah.
So I assume he had the same thing going on.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a part where
they say to me that I have to do it. They say that you can just don't go on the floor, or if you go on the floor, then you have to try.
You gotta be trying.
Yeah. But
because I had asked a few coaches. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mingo. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yep. You were
like
gonna say
I was saying, it's just like at this moment I was still warm and I couldn't really feel it that much, and it's just like, I knew it was over because when you do only one arm 20 ankle bite and you know that you're not gonna do the 15 strict muscle up because I didn't have to, then it was over for this workout. But I didn't want to have this idea to just withdraw and just be like, okay, for me it was just more the human was talking, not just the athlete,
So I have a question sort of linking to some of this, because I think some of the points you've made and Bill sort of has echoed this as well about the mentality of the athlete and how, if you're thinking about next season, you're already thinking about overcoming an injury, but you don't want to be thinking about overcoming this mental block of, well, if it hurts too much, I stop, or if it's too tough, I give up. So I understand that, which is where the idea of, well, should there be other people that can stop you? Because I get that you'd be angry, frustrated, upset. That could fuel you more than that kind of, I withdrew and I feel like a failure, versus, they stopped me, I could have done more and they stopped me, and next year nobody's going to stop me, kind of thing. That sort of mentality, which leads to like a comment somebody put on the reel I made, talking about kind of accessibility of coaches to athletes during the workouts. Because do you think if coaches were there to kind of help reason a little bit with their athletes, that maybe people would make slightly different decisions? Or at that point is the coach's opinion irrelevant? I don't know.
No, I think in that moment the athlete's going to do what the athlete wants to do. Coach don't matter. And the coach will be like, I get it. I think almost every single situation, that's how it would go. And I don't think it's the right answer to have a medical team say you have to stop, because it's a slippery slope. We tell Roman he has to stop. He doesn't get third place. We don't get the moments of Roman doing the one-footed double unders. We tell Patrick Vellner to stop in the regionals, and then he doesn't make the games, even though he did whenever he blew out his bicep. It's a slippery slope. When do you say stop, right? And I don't want to leave that to CrossFit.
They're the only ones you could leave it to, but they have rules that they've changed in the last year that have tried to safeguard that. Well, and safeguarded themselves in a few ways. One being the Corone, or I think it was Corby Foxhall at Orlando last year. In both cases, they weren't attempting ring muscle ups, which sounds similar to Mango's situation, where that seemingly there is no minimum work requirement, but there's a minimum like trying requirement, I guess.
Which is fine.
Which is fine. To that piece though, Brooke wanted to pop her elbow back into place and go back on the field. We good?
Yep.
Like,
okay.
Like
and
I understand there's an and there, but
you got three athletes
I'm
talking to
saying
you right
in
now,
a sport, I know the weakest guy in the room, including Mango. She could destroy me, but
you're good.
Oh, thank you.
I saw him doing some handstand push-ups. But he can do strict better handstand push-ups better than me. But it's a sport. If somebody cracks their head in the NFL, they're going under a tent. No questions asked.
Like, I guarantee
yes,
they send them back with their head cracked still.
Yeah, correct. Like I sent Jason this morning. There's an athlete, what was the name? Ronnie Lott, just asked to have his finger cut off because it was broken.
Well,
athletes will compete. I am not arguing with the fact that athletes will compete. But there are changes that they made in the last year to try to safeguard this, to tell athletes like, hey, Roman, you're going to get a 0 regardless. It's an amazing story. I wept. Him talking about his being a dad for his kids and like showing how awesome he is. He was amazing. But he got a 0 and he got a 0 and he was still 3rd place. They changed the rules that were, I think it affected Brooke specifically. If you withdraw, you are last. You are not 20th or 5th or wherever. I think she dropped from 5th to 20th or something like that. You are in last place. You are withdrawn. Now the rules state, including in Mango's case, if you compete, go for it, I guess. But just to be clear, you're going to keep your points. Wherever those points then fall by the end of the week or end of the weekend, you will be in that spot. So Roman would still be 3rd. He wouldn't have the amazing jumping on one foot doing heavy double under story, but he would still be in 3rd. So is there like and to Jason's question, maybe to get back to that, is there somebody that's going to say, no, throw in the towel? This person shouldn't be on the floor right now. They may cause serious damage to themselves. And in a sport that is trying to grow, everybody makes fun of the pull-ups. Everybody makes fun of the things. If you have an athlete that has medical attention brought to them and is told, I was told, what do you want to do? Athletes always want to compete. They never want to stop competing. Their life is on the line in that moment right there. They're going to say, put me back on that bike. Well, in that moment, is there anyone that's saying, and a medical professional is standing right there saying, I think it's this. Is there anyone that's saying, hey, maybe don't? That then turns into EMTs for the arena, not the CrossFit medical staff, having to rush the floor to pull somebody out while 2 athletes are still competing. Look at the scene that you're causing. Yeah.
Yeah. The second time they rushed,
I have it all timeline.
Here, to play devil's advocate,
it did not rush.
Though, like if they came out on the first time, she wouldn't have even tried. You know, she laid there for 90 seconds saying, help, somebody come get me. I've effed myself up. Nobody came.
It was a full 90 seconds.
Well, I guess I'll just bite.
I think.
But that's what I mean. A medical person and the head judge were both within that video. Both talked to her. She got back on the bike. Go ahead. Sorry, Bill.
I was going to say, I think that elite level athletics is not training fitness program. And I think that the events can be designed as safe as possible. And we could have, you know, when that's part of the programming is, and this is a Scott Panchik thing. Like, okay, the ropes are where the ropes are because landing on the rope and twisting your ankle. Okay, well, we don't want the ropes hanging to where they can drop on you. You can, step on them and twist your ankle. So you can design and program the events to where they're as safe as they could possibly be. But at that point, it's like the athlete, it's on the onus of the athlete to decide what they want to do and how they can do it. And this is part of the thing we were talking about, the box jump scenario, the step down of the box jump. I don't think that if you are saying that you must step down for safety's purpose, then I think you are discounting what the race is supposed to be doing. We're elite level athletes, and we should be able to compete as we want to compete. Period. Now, if you are in like the regular CrossFit gym, okay, I can tell people, hey, I want you guys to step down because we don't want you hurting your Achilles or whatever the situation might be being. But again, like if we're racing, let me race. Now, if I get hurt doing that, like the thing is, guess what, guys? Like elite level fitness does not put years on your life. It takes years away. It just does. And I don't care what sport you're talking about. The higher level you go, the more you are putting your body into a position that it is not supposed to be doing things, period. Lifting, swimming, running, CrossFit. It just doesn't, it's not for health. It's for racing. Yeah. And so I think that if we are stepping in to that scenario, you got to let us do what we want to do. So if a doctor can come out and say, hey, I think you shouldn't go. Well, we've seen doctors say that all the time about everything. So if that was the case, nobody would do anything. So
you go to a doctor, they're going to be like, hey, stop working out.
Hey, you need to not lift weights.
All the time.
Right. So I have a hard time with that. I have a really hard time with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just like you don't need to take off the plyometry and just put step down to make sure that we're not gonna get injured. I mean, we can get injured by just doing a step down too, you know.
By jumping down.
They obviously don't think you're gonna get hurt coming down a rope.
Like,
that rope wasn't touching the floor. It wasn't a panchic issue.
Yeah, exactly. Just by walking on the street. So at this moment, then you don't do anything. But what I'm saying is like I think it's always our responsibility because we are human and like we are adults. And also, it's like I was a track and field athlete before, and I've never seen someone saying to a sprinter, for example, in the starting block, "Hey, you have to stop because I saw you on the warm-up area, and I saw that you're I don't know, you have a saw or whatever in I don't know, something wrong." Now, I mean, if the guy wants disqualification and he wants to take the risk, I mean, I've seen a lot of people doing that. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but they're not gonna be like, it's because of the competition. It's because of me, and then you have to take your own responsibility.
When Cara Saunders came onto the scene, she was going to be on the podium her first year at the CrossFit Games. And she ended up pulling out because she had the jaw issue and the neck issue and all the stuff that was going on. She withdrew with I think 2 events, maybe 3 events left, 2 events, something like that.
It was 2.
Was it 2? And she would have been in the top 5.
Because the midline march is when she
That's right. With the handstand walks, I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And she withdrew and went from going where she could have been, I think it was like top 5. She would have gotten place money, everything, to 0, nothing.
No, that's not good.
And that to me was like all the work that she did. Yeah. And whether it was her choice, and if it was her choice, cool. If that was her choice, and that's the way she wanted to do it, fine.
Yeah.
But if she was told she had to, and I really honestly don't remember if she was told, encouraged, arm twisted behind her back. I don't know. I'm just saying that if you're that close, it's bad. Now with the Roman thing, I mean, I'm glad that he stayed in, not to show his kid that he's a dad and like all.
Yeah,
of
I could care less.
Like I
don't.
It was really nice. It was really nice.
I'm glad it encouraged. I'm glad
you didn't do that for your kid.
I'll shed a little tear. It was a nice speech.
You know what I mean? Like people.
You didn't do it for your kid, man.
I'm with Bill all the way, dude. You just wanted to
stay out there. You knew that you were going to be in the top 3.
You wanted to prove Jeff Adler.
When Tia says I won for Willow, I'm going to be like, go retire,
right?
Because I'm done hearing that.
Like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That was not the case. But I think it was, he knew exactly where he was, and he knew where the points were, and he didn't want to do the Cara Saunders. He wanted to be on the top 3.
That rule was in place though for Roman. He would have been 3rd if he stepped on the floor or not. Roman is 3rd.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters.
No, I'm saying athletes want to compete. Like if it was for free, Roman would have sat there and done it. He's that type of athlete. I'm saying that rule was in place. He wouldn't have dropped like Cara did from second to last or wherever she was.
But again, just like you said, it's like the athlete is making the choice, and the athlete should make the choice because, I mean, geez, talk about this is completely off the subject of the normal stuff, but my body, my choice. Like, give me a break, you know? Like, I should be able to.
Well, we might have different.
Right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
using that phrase in a whole different context here, but I mean, but it is that. It's like, this is the machine that I've been developing. If it's not going to go where the goal is, and I've done this. I've had a long life, and I've been on this planet a long time, and I've done this a handful of times. The way I ended my college career, thanks, by the way, as I put my hand through a window a week before I had to go to the Pac-10s to qualify for nationals, and I was top 10 in the nation. And I cut the 2 tendons on my finger here.
Wrestling, so grabbing is important.
Grabbing was important. And my very first thing that I said as I'm rinsing my bloody hand under the sink is, I could just tape it up. I'll tape it up. It'll be fine. Like, that's an athlete's mentality, is I will make do with what
Cut it off.
Yeah. Or cut it off. Now, was that the smartest thing? I thought for sure I could do it. And that was my intent. I got stitches in it. I had that thing taped up, and there was no fucking way that if anyone was going to touch my hand, that I would have been okay. So I decided at that point that I had to pull out, and I couldn't go to the qualifier. But that's the reaction, and that's my choice. And I sat there with my coach, and I told him about it. And he was the same thing. I was like, "Are you sure you can't do it?" And I'm like, "If your hand comes within 1 foot of my hand, it will feel that." It was bad. So
I almost feel like it's like CrossFit or any sport almost owes it to the athlete to let them finish if they want to. Like, you dedicate your lives to this.
That's not unprofessional either.
Like, yeah, I think, like, you look at the freaking Olympic commercial, the 1992 with Derek Redmond. You know what I'm talking about? Morgan Freeman. It's beautiful. Yep. It'll make you cry on YouTube, Mike. Guy pulls his hamstring, can't run at all. Everybody's done, and he just trots like Bambi's mother when she was shot to the finish line, and then Dad comes out and helps him. It's a big story. They didn't stop him from doing that. Like,
you almost like the 80s, 90s. The gymnast, she got carried off the
landed and couldn't land on her foot.
She still won though, right? She won gold, right? Shrug,
Carry
shrug.
Oh yeah.
It's more something between you and your own coach at the end of the day. You know, you're going to talk and be like, okay, what's the risk to take and everything, like I was saying just before. Because, you know, like if you're doing another sport like gymnastics or track and field, the judges are not going to be like, okay, you have to stop. So it's you be like, well, I should stop right now because, you know, like it's too risky. The coach is going to say, okay, we stop here. But it's not the judges who's going to be like, okay, you have to stop.
Hey, Margo, when you did that snatch and you felt it in the elbow, did you look over to your coach right away, or were you like instantly like inside thinking, okay, like self-assessment, what am I going to do? Or was it like snap and you look over and like, uh-oh, hey, you know something's up?
I mean, the first thing was like, because I feel that I think that I'm someone who can accept a lot of pain. I mean, I'm kind of used to with the CrossFit and all the, I mean, you know, we are always pushing each other, like pushing limits, you know. So, I didn't know what was really happening actually. So I was like, is it me who is doing too much, or is it like really painful? You know what I mean? And then I look at my coach. Yeah. After that, of course.
But see that, but you answered that. You answered that. Honestly, you answered exactly how I was hoping you would answer it, which is the athlete is. It's not like you look over to the coach and be like, what should the coach say? You were, as the athlete, thinking like, okay, how do I get through this next thing? Because it's you are in control of you. Now, maybe if you're like, hey, coach, I need some help deciding what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Because the coach is with them all the time. They'll probably give them. Yeah, I mean, it's at that point, it's like a discussion. But when you're out there on the floor, like that's a hard time to have that discussion. And I mean, like when Rebecka went for the box jump, it's amazing, especially since she's had two. I'm surprised. It's weird how you don't remember this stuff.
I'm surprised she even tried. She said, I know immediately what happened.
Step down on the bad knee.
And
like,
you can't turn your knee when that happens.
I mean, I did the same thing. When I got up, I was able to get up. I kind of hobbled my way down the floor. And when I had to turn to go the other direction, you just don't think, you think like, okay, I'm limping, not like if I touch this thing to the ground, I'm going to collapse. And I mean, I saw her do that. I was like, oh, she forgot. Like she's in competition mode right now.
And
but I mean, at that point, it's like it's already broken anyway.
Like, you're not thinking in the right mindset. You know,
That-
should it be somebody's job to stop you? I still think the answer is no.
Right.
But and then if the athlete F's himself up bad and say way worse than they were, but like does it like now our MCL and UCL, everything's torn. Everything. It's her, she did it. Like she lives with that decision. Like,
So,
and that's in my opinion, like you live with what you choose. If you F yourself more, you chose to.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
mine. I can live with that. I'm pretty sure Margot can live with that. Bill can live with that. And then in later, be like, that was dumb. I shouldn't have done that.
Which we've all done that too.
We've all done that one too. And you can live with it. You know what I mean?
So there's a couple of things. There's a couple of comments that
Yeah.
I'd like to pull up as well that are quite interesting. One thing I do think is, saying like she'd done it before and obviously she stepped off the box and that's when she collapsed. I thought about it today and I was thinking, she was in a lot of, she said she was in a lot of pain and all of that. And I'm thinking legless rope climbs are probably harder to do when you're also in a tremendous amount of pain. So there's a scenario, in another world where she starts climbing the rope and just, can't make it and drops from the rope onto her now already damaged knee. So actually like the collapsing on the box was probably of the different things that could have happened.
Shortest
One of the, one of the.
If she was allowed to jump
ones.
down, she would not have collapsed again because she would have just jumped on one leg. Just saying.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, that is true.
Step down is too dangerous for her athletes.
So,
and we need to get
write a dissertation on that because that would be really interesting to send to CrossFit. A few things that were brought up in the comments. One, even as a medic, I cannot force you to stop, get treatment, or go to a hospital. The person is of a capable mindset. I cannot force them. So it's quite interesting. Countered with CrossFit can not allow you on the competition floor. So that would be, interesting to see. But as we said, there's no guidelines at the moment.
Well, they have actually done that before. They did that with Miranda Oldroyd when she was on Jason Kalipa's team. Remember, she tore her ACL.
They were like, just let me do what I can.
Yeah,
they were winning.
Nope.
They were beating everybody.
They would have won that year.
But they wanted Precious Rich to win. So they said, Miranda, you can't. Your team is done.
See, I think I think that even in
I'm sorry,
an
Rich.
injury,
I've been talking so good about you, and I just did that. I'm sorry, man. I apologize.
Well, it was just it's the one time that we would have seen, the king being taken down. But like that's one of those things where again, the competition is now dictating what the athlete is allowed to do, and it's the athlete has been putting all the time and let them do what they can do. If they have to limp through it, let them limp through it. If it's again their choice. Yeah, we signed a waiver for it. We're good.
Yeah, Sammy brings up an interesting point that because of the nature of CrossFit, being withdrawn from a competition ends your season. Compared to another sport where maybe they say, right, you've got to sit out the second half of this match, but if you're okay, next week you're back in and you can kind of pick up and you haven't lost as much.
Olympic sports are all like that.
Yeah,
I'm a wrestler, man. You got one shot every 4 years, period.
I also would argue I would look at workouts as games, right? If you're going to compare it to different sports, like the open workouts, that's 3 games that they played. The semifinal workouts, that's 5 games that they played, right? Like if you say Patrick Mahomes,
so you're saying it's 6 games, basically.
Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL in the conference finals. His whole season's over. Yeah. Like he's done, right? Like you could say that for everything, but since there's 16, football's so long or basketball's so long, you don't think of it that way. But basically, you train for that one game, and if you get hurt, it's over. You could say the same thing for all of it, for like every sport. It doesn't just apply to CrossFit.
Yeah. Now we've cut Mango off a couple of times.
No, it's just like I was thinking about one of my someone I know that did the Olympic Games in track and field. And just before going there, she injured herself, but she still went to the Olympic Games. So it was in Tokyo, and of course, she did the race and she injured. But it's, she really wanted to do it. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying it's good. Like, I was the first one to say, well, she did it, But it's her body.
I would go to the Olympics. With an arm cut off.
Her dream was to go to Olympic Games, and she can be like, okay, I rest in the Olympic Games, but So I'm just saying that I think your responsibility more than anything else.
And It's a fine line, but what I'm saying is the sport needs to regulate itself, that they don't just have athletes running straight into walls, and that's not what's happening here. But just shown in the Vitesson example, she waved off the head judge, she waved off the medical people, said, I want to keep trying. As all three competing athletes here, you all said you're going to say that every single time anyone asks, cut my finger off, like do whatever. Like what I'm saying is a sport where it comes down to this, and I'll get to this point in a second, but a sport that's actually an advertisement for CrossFit, that has an issue with CrossFit being dangerous or unsafe, is saying, let the athletes run into a wall, let them die on the field. If that's what they want to do, that's okay.
I don't
And
believe
that's the
it.
piece.
Go ahead and finish. Sorry.
Well, and that's the piece here that I think is, to Jason's main question, what should CrossFit do? Maybe they shouldn't do anything. And I think that's what all three of you have said, is just get out of the athlete's way. If she tears the rest of her knee off, okay, that was on her. She fell off the box. But what I'm saying is, from the sport perspective, and then the sport being an advertisement of CrossFit perspective, it doesn't look good when you have 10 EMTs rush the floor and pull somebody off after a medical person of CrossFit and the head judge of CrossFit got waved off and told, no, get out of my way. Or I'm not putting words into Rebecca's mouth, but like just that. Like the outside EMTs had to jump in to pull her out of that floor while the event continued to go on, while Chase and Lucy, who did an amazing job, and Boz, who was on the call at the time, all had to sit there and just commentate over it. It's not a great look, but I don't want to get in athletes' way. Sorry, Bill.
Okay. I think that perception, I don't think that Rebecka going down and her having to be pulled off the floor is a commercial for how dangerous CrossFit is. Because if you watch, I mean, if that's the only thing you watched, okay. But then that would be the same exact thing if you were talking about football where someone tweaks their knee or they take a header, or if you're watching UFC and someone doesn't wake up or they break their leg or what. I mean, like you could say that any injury in sport is going to be a commercial for how dangerous that sport is. I don't think that, at least I hope, that CrossFit, the sport, doesn't concern themselves so much with worrying about if everyone thinks that we're dangerous, when there are combative sports that are way more dangerous than what we do.
Weightlifting is way more dangerous.
Pick it.
You could look up Olympic weightlifting injury compilations.
I'm not trying to compare dangerous sports to each other, though.
No,
I think though. So I think that the difference, and like to Mike's point, is it is that relationship that CrossFit, the methodology, and CrossFit, the sport, have, that is intertwined, that at times, you know, you think, well, maybe it would be better if they weren't, because like nobody is going, well, a combat sport, yeah, that's probably pretty good for my health. Like it's clear
people
that
go doing jiu-jitsu all the time as their workout.
Yeah, but they know going into that, they you know exactly what you're going in for.
Those people
Nobody's
don't
saying
get
to you,
in a UFC.
no, actually, you know, we got legends classes and longevity classes, and this is good for, you know, people in their 90s. They should be doing CrossFit, and then they're looking at the game and go, well, hold on, this seems right. But that's besides the point. I mean, that's just, you know, two different things. I do think as well, going back to some of the examples we mentioned before, like an athlete who's injured themselves, you know, like in the warm-up area before a sprint at the Olympics, most of the people watching aren't aware of that. So they just see them run a race. Maybe the athletes know, maybe people behind the scenes know. There is something to be said for like a live stream where you see somebody claps, you see them waiting, and there's a clock live in the top corner. So it's not like, man, it felt like a really long time for someone to get there. You can literally watch the time ticking by, athletes running by. Somebody comes, everyone's seen this, they see their wave up, and then they see them collapse again. So there is that element of like optics from outside that people see, that compared to, you know, Bill cutting himself, you know, before a meet and then going, well, I'm going to go and compete anyway, and people aren't aware of that.
Well, I think, but the optics of that wasn't CrossFit. That was the fact that it took the venue's medical team to get out there, and whether she decides to wave them up. I mean, if nothing else, like when the medical team came up to me, and that was at a regionals, at a semifinal event, same thing, and it was in my face. are you able to continue? And my answer was, I don't know. Get out of my way. I'll let you know if I can continue, but I don't know until I do something. So I think she had to have that ability to be able to see, okay, well, can I limp through this? Can I get through this? The fact that she fell off the box and she was taken off, it was like, okay, at that point she could be like, well, I can't. Okay.
I think you guys are confusing the optics.
Who?
Me.
Jason and Mike.
Halpin?
Because like I want you to, you say it's the confusion of the methodology versus the sport, and as an onlooker, you don't know the difference, right? But the sport is for people already in CrossFit that are like, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're in the athletes. It's for the athletes. Like, it's not for
I
general
agree.
population.
The 6-hour live stream is for the people that care. The 2-minute clip that someone cuts and puts on YouTube to tell you how dangerous CrossFit is.
You cannot worry about that. You could do that to anything.
Yeah,
I think you're worrying about something that anybody can do.
I agree to an extent. She fell 3 feet onto her knee, and the ACL that was likely already broken before broke again. I'm saying, like, I'm gonna mess up her name, but Bjorn's daughter,
it just stays torn.
Oh, okay. But Bjorn's daughter, who was a teen athlete, she already made it to the games for the teens. She has an Olympic weightlifting event next weekend. She rolled her ankle crossing the finish line on event 4. She withdrew immediately after that and stated, because I have a weightlifting event next weekend, and also, by the way, I'm already a games athlete. So she's going regardless. But so yes, you can get in. I could get injured walking into the gym tonight, just walking in, not with a snatch above my head or not falling off a rope. But what I'm saying is, the games is an advertisement for the methodology, and that's what I'm pointing at. And I'm saying, not the bad look is athletes get hurt doing things. The bad look is it took 90 seconds for the CrossFit people to do anything. And then the CrossFit people got waved off because all athletes just see red when they're competing. And they said they got out of her way. And then the arena EMTs were the ones to take her out. I'm saying that's the bad look. I'm not saying CrossFit sport is a bad look, or getting injured like Mango did during a snatch is a bad look, or falling off a rope is bad look. The sport happens. Football athletes hit each other. UFC athletes hit each other. There's more violent sports and less violent sports. CrossFit is not a violent sport. CrossFit does not hurt people or have higher injury rates than pickleball or anything else. What I'm saying is, it's a bad look when you have an athlete who probably, in her own words that she gave Jason, probably shouldn't have kept going, and then keeps going, and then it gets worse. That's the bad look.
The way to fight that would be if CrossFit, and I'm glad Chase is in here right now, if CrossFit was aware of what was going on and they were being aware of what that look would be like, then the media would be getting in their ear, hey, this is what's happening, but we're going to take the cameras off that and put it to the other people that are racing. And they tried to do that a little bit. Like, they did come off, but that wide shot,
they kept her in the shot for
the whole time. Now, if CrossFit was really
and there was an audible gasp when
like,
she fell off the box, they had to show it.
Well, yeah, totally. And you can have that. You could have as a broadcaster, we have that in our ear. The play-by-play is saying what's happening. The color's going to be going, hey, are we going to go to them to talk about them, or are we not going to? Where do you want us to go? Or, hey, get off of them until we figure out what's happening with them. Like, that's that communication between the commentators and the broadcast team, the cameraman, but also CrossFit. I mean, Boz was right there. Boz should have been right away talking to someone and being like, hey, either get off of that shot, or let's go all the way down, or get Lauren down there to find out what they could find out, to let everyone talk and then get back to the race. Like, there's ways of getting around that, rather than just showcasing 12 people who aren't doing anything circle up after 90 seconds. And then it's like Keystone Cops when they go to wheel her off on the stretcher, you know?
Yeah, I think, obviously this case was tricky because she was so far ahead. So if it had been another athlete, and
she
they've
was the
been
star of that
middle of the pack.
I get it. I get
So,
it.
so you think it's more of a media issue, Mike, than a somebody stopping you
Procedural.
versus not stopping you issue?
You asking me?
I
or
think
Mike?
it's a
And
mixed bag.
Mike.
It's a mixed bag to an extent, but was your question good? Oh, well, I'll say this. It's a mixed bag. Like I think there's pieces. I remember being with Bill in Wadapalooza, a chain snapped on a ring muscle up, and they were like, "We're not showing the chain again. We're not showing it. We're just get a cutaway." Yeah, I think he won that heat.
Hit him in the face.
Still on the next chain on the next rings over. So like I get the media piece. I don't like Boz has to, and I think Boz has been around the sport the longest, but of that room, but like he was just also just going with the same sayings of like, wow, it's just great to see the tenacity or whatever like it is to like the grit and stuff like that. It was just sort of like, okay, well, when she then spends the next 60 seconds on the ground, I think maybe the conversation changes a little bit, or you start to like maybe go like, hey, is anybody gonna go actually figure this out? I mean, he was a head judge himself, obviously, so like there's protocols that have to have been in place and have been in place for a long time. And Cara, Bill, in your situation where something likely should have been happening and just seemingly wasn't. There's a comment all the way towards the top here of somebody saying they were there, saying the medical team's room was on a second floor 5 minutes away from the field. So like
That
just to that
like
extent.
a procedural issue to me.
Yeah, that's how things are being run.
If anything,
and every example we've said before has been a games event. Like if you look at Brooke, like people were on her immediately. Like it was like they were fast about it. And I think this situation should have been handled the way Brooke's situation was handled, but I don't. And then, like you said, I don't think we need to show the clip of her being drawn out on a stretcher afterwards. But like, I think that's the only stuff that's wrong with it. I don't think it's a stop the athlete versus athlete having their own mind issue.
Well, it's also like to Mango's point around like track and other, like I can't think of a scenario where a track meet is happening and then an injury have to actually rush the track. Mango, you can tell me if that's happened, but like that's another piece of this where she was top of the heap, center lane. Like I have to imagine the procedural pieces, they have to be thinking like, should we be pausing this event? How do we get to the middle lane if somebody's going to be running down both lanes? I just mean though, like it seemed like they were figuring that out as it was happening. And like most things with CrossFit, it's very reactionary to like, oh, we never thought of that before. Let's do this thing now.
That is historically the CrossFit way.
And you definitely don't need 10 people to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like if you're worried about
it
how
takes
you
two people to carry a stretcher.
Yeah, you don't need that many people.
Yeah. Soccer does it all the time.
No.
Or I'm sorry, Margot.
Football. Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
No, I'm just thinking about one thing. It's just like I think that CrossFit by keeping the front, whatever happened, is the best thing they can do. You know what I mean? I mean, because before you were like, okay, if I withdraw, then I'm last. No, they don't do that anymore. Which I think is something they should do like since all the time, since the beginning. But I think this is the only thing they can do. You know what I mean? Because then, like we were saying just before, then it's only your decision. But as long as CrossFit keep the front, I think they should just stay like this. And I mean, it's normal to do that. If they don't, like a few years ago when they didn't do that, for me was like, why? You know what I mean? You had your points, so you just need to have it. And you're not gonna win except if you have like I don't know how many points, like so many points, and like it's only one workout and maybe you can win. But I think it's normal.
Yeah, I think that is good. I also think it's interesting take here is that maybe the medics were more for the optics. So the fact that they rushed out so many medics was to appease the crowd more than the individual.
That's the most retarded thing I've ever heard.
Oh no, I could absolutely see them do it. After we took a minute to get for the first time,
but
now we'll just make sure we do overkill. But
so the rules changes last year okay.
So, I was just going to say to the point that Margaret made, I think that is a great rule And I guess this is why I kind of asked the question, because as well, I'm not for, I'm in the middle here. I'm, as always, I'm just raising the question.
Come
and let
on,
you guys
Jason,
are
pick a
usually-
side already.
are usually
Pick a
like
side.
this.
but
You can't ride the fence like that.
Oh, I can. I do it professionally.
Tightrope
But
walker.
my point is that, like, that's a great rule, right? That, okay, you can withdraw and you still get your points, and more importantly, maybe your prize money, especially if you are, in contention for a podium or a top 5 or something like that. The problem is, as we've discussed, the mentality of an athlete. Like, unless they're literally missing an arm, they're probably still going to be like, I could give it a go. So a rule that CrossFit puts in place, like, that's going to help a very small fraction that are really hurt and like, yeah, this is crazy. Or it's an event that potentially they're thinking, this isn't the semifinals that's going to get me to the games. Maybe this is somewhere where, there isn't a next step after this. So actually, I bow out now, save myself for the next season. But generally speaking, as you guys have attested to, an athlete's going to be like, yeah, but there's that personal pride. There's that, it doesn't matter that I'll still keep my points. I want people to see me out there. I want them to see me, limping down the track,
Don't quit.
showing that,
No,
showing
not
that
that I
they
want
want
them
the
to see
people
me.
to see you. Yeah,
not that, it's
for
me.
themselves. It's like,
For
I'm
me.
gonna finish the event. I
Okay.
can finish it.
Yeah,
but it's the same. It's
really
the
don't
same
think
result,
it's
isn't it?
pride.
Sorry, Mango?
If they were in the gym by themselves, they may still do it. Yeah.
It's just like, I really don't think that at this point is about pride and be like, okay, like I can show.
Be great on
I
Instagram.
really don't think it's about that.
Yeah.
I just think it's
Do
more
it for
that,
the gram.
I don't know, it's what is natural in you, if you're someone who is always going to the end of everything, you're always giving your best, and then it's just normal to do it, you know what I mean? Because
That's what makes them elite.
Well, I was going to say, unless you've got that mentality, you've probably not made it to semifinals, right? So
Right.
that's the mentality you're taking into the gym every day, that's forcing you to kind of train whenever people are stopping, that's making you work on your weaknesses, that's pushing you to the next level in the open, the next level in the quarterfinals, getting to semifinals. So it would be strange at like semifinals or the games for suddenly someone to be like, actually, this is quite hard, I'm going to stop.
Well,
Because
and that's where I'm.
they're just
That's
not
where I'm
made
going
of
with
that.
like a coach or somebody that can throw a flag into the ring and be like, okay, I understand here. They are going to put themselves into the ground on this workout. They're already injured. And what are they going to do further? And somebody else saying, a judge, a coach, like somebody saying, hey, maybe someone else should be speaking up here versus the athlete. And because the athlete is just going to do what athletes do and they're going to compete. That's where I'm talking about. I'm not even saying that they should stop them, honestly. I'm saying maybe CrossFit should at least get out ahead of this. Maybe Dave could do a weekend review that's not about Andrew Hiller. And we could have somebody that is saying something about this to say, like, hey, here's the thing. I mean, Dave went through this. He wrote a whole book about it, about athletes tearing pecs, like what, in 2015,
2017.
17.
Yeah. Like, he's lived through a regional that is just constantly injuring people. We're 1 week into this. All the men did okay. 4 women bowed out. Now, was it all like gruesome pec injuries? No, it was happenstance and everyday lifts and things like that seemingly got people. But like, that's just where I'm at. It's like, we saw a woman crawl like across the ground to get herself back on an echo bike. She's gonna compete. Nobody stopped her. She's gonna keep competing. And that's where I'm really talking about, is like, what do they have to say for that? And let me just say one more point. Last year, Alexander Carone was the biggest example of it, but there was a couple at Orlando. The issue wasn't that CrossFit was trying to speak up and help these athletes and speak up for them and say, no, whoa, you're too injured. Maybe like the athlete that you said before, Bill. Alvarez. But the issue was that they were actually saying, no, you have an advantage to the other athletes because this was only event 2 and they basically didn't do event 2. And so they had an advantage because they didn't have to do however many ring muscle ups, however many pistol squats, and however many box jumps. That's what CrossFit was stepping in about. So it's not like CrossFit added any rules that actually tell anybody like, hey, we're trying to control this. What they actually did was say, well, you're injured, but you have a benefit here not doing this workout because you didn't try. So the only thing we're going to change right now is we're going to not even add a minimum work requirement. We're just going to add that you have to try the whole time.
Have to try is the
Whatever.
dumbest
We're going to
statement
have this
ever,
subjective
dude.
piece
Come
of like
on.
whatever
You either do it or
try
you
the whole
don't.
time means.
Can I want to
I
say
just jump and not grab the ring. I'm like, oh, it's just too
I
hard.
tried.
I missed it again.
Margo.
They're swinging. Like the Wadapalooza would have worked because the rings are swinging the whole time.
Can I just interrupt 1 second? Halpin, had you seen Dave Castro's weekend review that was released today?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Because it literally, after you said it, about a minute after, it just pinged on my phone. Watched a recent Hiller video. My response to it. Okay. So that was a.
It was fresh in his mind for a reason. I want to, Mike, what you said in the beginning there. I think they could do something like that. I think like boxing, and if their coach has a white flag and they throw the white flag onto the arena, that means that athlete is out. But but it's their coach that has the white flag, and you choose who you want to give that white flag to. Because I think most
their coach
can go
that
there.
year, not the following year.
Yeah, well, I mean, the athlete would put who their white flag person.
Can we just? Sorry.
Go for it, Mango.
Just like if we compare CrossFit, for example, to track and field, for example, okay, and someone is running a 400-meter hurdles, okay, and so there are 10 hurdles, not 40, like everyone is thinking, 10 hurdles, and imagine at the 9th hurdles, the person fall on the floor, break something, is horrible, whatever, but still want to walk and finish the workout. No one is gonna say anything. No one, not like a judge or whatever, is gonna tell him to don't do it. That's what I'm just saying. It's just like he can just stop if you want, and he's not gonna have time, or he can just keep it and he's gonna have like a time, but it's a long time. But it's just him.
I agree. No one's going to say anything. Boxing, and it was funny we were talking about the flag. I was thinking about that for a second, even like with UFC.
Because you
the
look
ref
at your
can
coach.
come
You can
in
look at your
and
coach and be like,
it.
no.
Yeah, you can't.
You better do not throw the flag.
Right. But the reason you have that is because there's a point where you can become mentally disrupted by being beat in the head or being choked out or whatever the situation is. That's not going to happen on the CrossFit floor. So I don't think that even the coach should have that flag. It should be, I have my flag and I get to go. Now, if there's a situation where my head's getting beat up against the wall 900 times and I may not be able to have the faculties to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to bow out right now. Okay, that's different. But CrossFit will never be that. It will never even remotely come into that. It's not combative. There's nothing like that. So
where I think John and I are saying the coach white, where I think John and I are saying the coach white flag sort of thing is not the mental piece of like concussion or get a pass out, but basically the mental piece that is, I am not even thinking straight. The only thing I know right now is my season revolves around me getting back on this echo bike, getting back up that rope, and getting 10 box jump.
I just think most coaches, you could control your coach's decision most of the time. And the only times you couldn't would be like...
And it's somebody advocating for the athlete that is for the health and longevity of CrossFit and for that athlete and saying, your best moment right now is to get off this floor, not to like man up or woman up and like pull yourself off the ground and fall down 6 times and get up 7. Your best thing to do right now, and I'm speaking to you as your coach, is get off the floor and get medical attention because you may not even know what's wrong with you.
I don't think Rebecca's situation would be a white flag situation.
No.
I think I'm talking like worse than,
I got you.
Okay.
Let me throw
it too. I'm not saying Rebecca shouldn't. Yeah.
You guys know where I sit. And I think I'm very purist when I'm talking about. Let me ask you this though. What about for the age group, the kids?
That was a note I've had on my thing here and I was like, I'm not going to bring this up because there's no time. But that is an interesting thing as well, isn't it? Because at this point, you're having young people that are having to make decisions that could impact the rest of their life, potentially. And are they, in the right position to make that decision. So that's
I think
another
the white
interesting
flag
wiggle.
gets thrown a little more in those age groups.
I would give the white flag.
2 white flags.
In that
We could go all
situation, I
day,
would give the
Jason.
white flag
You
to the
gotta-
coach. I think
We
that
can't go
that
all
would be
day.
the
I've
one
got
time.
another show at 8 o'clock, and
Hey.
it's 7:20 now.
Sorry, but in other sports, so for example, in track and field or other sport, like whatever, there is no like different rules because you're a kid or because you're an adult.
True.
Sorry, but I had to say that.
No. I'm glad you did.
That's
I'm glad
why
you
you're
did.
here.
I mean,
Because I
was
was always under federation. I don't know if I can say it in English. You know, was always like this. So CrossFit is different. So I also have this way of thinking because I've been in federation for a long time. So when I hear you saying that, then it's make me think about that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I've broke my jaw, I've busted fingers, I've broke other people's arms and things at different times. So like I know that as a young
That was before the match. He
as
just
a
wanted
young
to-
right
Bad
as
boy.
a young athlete, I mean
in the
those
party
are
lot.
things that's the one time that I think that if you are talking about prolonging an athlete's life or a person's ability to do stuff. I think once you're an adult, do not tell me what I can and cannot do. It will be my decision whether I want to continue or not continue or whatever. I mean, I would just throw it out there as a kid thing. I think that there in those situations there would be a lot more talk. I think honestly, in all reality, that
nothing would change.
Nothing would change. Well, I don't think the kids would be nearly as staunch as adults
keeping
would.
on doing the event.
No, there's no way.
I agree completely.
Like pain thresholds
this
and
next
where
year.
you are mentally, generally speaking, I'm not saying that there aren't some phenoms out there that don't feel pain, but like I think that like there would be a lot of talk between the athlete, the parents, and that kid for sure. Different, but still.
So interesting rule here: if an athlete rests more than 60 seconds, they're out.
It's kind of like in a.
Well, hey, I would be out on a couple workouts, and that's not because of injury. So I don't know about that rule.
Just taking a break in that 800 meters, or
Like I got so far ahead so I could rest before the next bit. Why did they? And then they're like, "Sorry, John, you're out of here." Anyway, I'm so glad we got Mango on the show because Bill keeps saying all about like the mentality of an athlete, and then we see it like every time, and then some. And knowing that you've been sort of from youth, kind of under these sort of more strict like governing bodies of sport, that maybe it's a little bit even more extreme than CrossFit. Wow, it's coming out in your comments, which I love.
Margo, why didn't they tape your arm up more?
Sorry.
Why didn't they like the tape job that they did on your? It looked almost like, was that sort of something bad or not really bad? Like if it was me, I would have been like, man, athletic tape all over that thing. That thing would have been like a stiff, like locked out. Why didn't they actually tape it more?
With tattoos,
I'm not sure I understood what you said, but
so like in the video, we can see your elbows taped up.
Yes.
But it doesn't look like they put much tape on there. So we're just wondering, was that like your choice, or did you feel like that was enough? Could they have taped it more? Was there a reason why? Did CrossFit say for the live stream they didn't want you to have?
The difference between the 5-year-old division and the individual division.
I wanted to tell you this just before, but then we talk about something else. Nothing to do with that, but no, they didn't try to do something simple or small just because they don't want the people to see it. It's not like in gymnastics. I don't know if you know it, but in gymnastics, they all have a lot of gymnasts have straps because they are like injured, for example, on the knees and everything, or elbows, and it's always skin, like the skin, So if you're black, it's gonna be black. If you're like me, it's gonna be like my color, because they don't want people to see it too much because it's gymnastics and they don't want. Yeah, I don't know if you know it, but you're gonna check it on the Olympic Games.
Wow.
And you're gonna see that. But the mentality is changing in gymnastics, so hopefully everything. Anyway, no, it's not. It have nothing to do with that. Just my physio was here. Thank you. So it harmed me for the way that it was not broken. But he said how they had to tape it. And I was like, it's not that much. But because I was still warm, like I was telling you before, It was kind of okay, actually. The pain came when I came back home the night, and the pressure and everything was out, and everything. I was, my body was cold, and everything came. So I went to the urgency just to check again, do a scanner and everything. And yeah, it was not broken, but it's I don't know how to say that. It's muscular strain. So it's still something that we have to be careful. And I knew that, like I told you, that by doing strict ring muscle up, it was kind of okay. Otherwise, I would not do it. But I was really feeling my body because I was a gymnast before, so I can feel everything in my body, to be honest. So as soon as I feel something, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So I think that's another interesting thing, because that's going back to like optics and people watching, is that the people on the live stream that are commenting do not have that awareness, or that it would be like, oh, she's doing what, if they see you doing a strict ring muscle up, it's like, oh, what's happening? Not, I'm doing this because I can feel every moment of this movement, and if it gets to a point, I can stop at any moment, versus I'm in a position, I'm going from a dead hang to being in that position, and whoa, I can't support myself here. So
throwing yourself into your elbow.
Average people, not average people, but I guess a lot of people like have a degree of experience, but you were saying you can, with your background, you just know your body so much better than like we know ours, even if we've been doing CrossFit for a long time.
I would have taped the hell out of my arm. My arm would have been like locked in like a not quite locked out position, but just enough to where there's no tension. It's all locking right here, and there's no elbow in it at all.
Yeah. I'm going to go back and watch the tape and make sure that she hasn't just used skin-colored tape. And just put like a little bit of white on there, and then it's just absolutely coated in the skin-colored tape. Guys, I know we could go back and forth on this for hours, but I also was aware that there was a chance that Margot's phone was going to die at any moment anyway. So it's good that it's lasted. We haven't solved the world's problems, but I think it's been a nice chat. It's good to see the kind of the mentality of the athlete, and how can CrossFit, even if they wanted to do something more, like really what could they do that then doesn't rob the athlete of kind of their choices, that wouldn't be, it's going to be criticized either way, right? So if they do something, the athlete's not happy. If they don't do something, some spectators are not happy or concerned. I just thought it was an interesting question as it happened, and made me think about it. So I thought, what do I know? Bring on the experts. So that's what we were here to do. So I would like to thank Mike Halpin, known and knowable. You can follow him on Instagram. Bill Grundler, you can follow him pretty much everywhere. He's just notorious. He's been let off the hook at the moment because there's no Chase Ingram in the country. So so we got Bill. Yes. John Young. Where are you next popping up? On the spin, I guess. That's probably your next appointment.
What day is it?
Only Monday.
Monday?
Check my appointment book.
Spin's next.
Yeah, and Margot, thank you so much for jumping on very last minute as well. I would love to have you back on Plate Stack Chat, where there would only be one other guest, and you'd actually get to speak a lot more about these terrible guys interrupting you every 5 minutes. But that's the nature of a big discussion, isn't it? Thank you everyone in the comments. We didn't really pull up as many comments just because the points here were already so pertinent. I'm gonna go because I have to be back on in half an hour with Mr. Meme for Time, Roderick Lopez, and Top Saddam, who was in the comments earlier, Sammy. So we'll be back in half an hour if anyone wants to come and listen to a chat that has nothing to do with such a deep, tough topic in CrossFit, but will be a lot lighter and more relaxed. The kind of thing I prefer, to be honest. But thank you again.
With that question, just see what they.
I'll just start.
Just start with that. Exactly.
Let's get their feedback.
Yeah, Rolo, have you made a meme of anybody falling off a rope?
Oh, he for sure has.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everyone in the comments. I hope you haven't been disappointed with the outcome, that we didn't solve the world's problems in CrossFit, but hey, there's always tomorrow, isn't there?